Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the book of Hosea as part of our larger study of the writing prophets, which addressed, I should say, the northern kingdom. And we're in Hosea chapter 7. And Hosea chapter 7, this is the part of this longer part of the prophecy, the bulk of Hosea's prophecy, starting in chapter 4 and going through the end of chapter 13, which is basically God prosecuting his people and telling them what judgment is headed their way. This is one of those places where God is expressing a great deal of regret at this lost relationship and laments their wickedness because he loves them and they've hurt him. And we talked about as Hosea went through this process in marrying the unfaithful wife in verses 1 through 3. We've talked about how we get this range of emotions and waves of emotion um, on behalf of God as the wronged partner, as the faithful husband of a faithless wife. And in this chapter, we're getting this emotion. It didn't have to be this way, and yet it is. This is the way it is, and that makes me so sad. And that's what we're getting in Hosea chapter 7. So let's read chapter 7. When I would heal Israel, the iniquity of Ephraim is uncovered, and the evil deeds of Samaria, for they deal falsely. There, the thief enters in, bandits raid outside. They do not consider in their hearts that I remember all their wickedness. Now their deeds are all around them. They are before my face. With their wickedness they make the king glad, and the princes with their lies. They are all adulterers, like an oven heated by the baker who ceases to stir up the fire. From the kneading of the dough until it is leavened, on the day of our king, the princes became sick with the heat of wine. He stretched out his hand with scoffers, for their hearts are like an oven as they approach their plotting. Their anger smolders all night. In the morning it burns like a flame. All of them are hot like an oven, and they consume their rulers. All their kings have fallen, and none of them calls on me. Ephraim mixes himself with the nations. Ephraim has become a cake not turned. Strangers devour his strength, yet he does not know it. Gray hairs are also sprinkled on him, but he does not know it. Though the pride of Israel testifies against him, yet they have neither returned to the Lord their God, Yahweh their God, nor have they sought him for all this. So Ephraim has become like a silly dove without sense. They call on Egypt, they go to Assyria. When they go, I will spread my net over them. I will bring them down like the birds of the sky. I will chastise them in accordance with the proclamation to their assembly. Woe to them, for they have strayed from me. Destruction is theirs, for they have rebelled against me. I would redeem them, but they speak lies against me, and they do not cry to me from their heart. When they wail on their beds for the sake of grain and new wine, they assemble themselves, they turn away from me. And although I trained and strengthened their arms, yet they devise evil against me. They turn, but not upward. They are like a deceitful bow. Their princes will fall by the sword because of the insolence of their tongue. This will be their derision in the land of Egypt. There's so much here, and some of it kind of runs together. Uh, there's the sin of idolatry, which, in terms of their covenant relationship with God, is the sin of spiritual adultery, and it's talked about throughout. Then there is the corruption. Then there is the violence. Then there is the second betrayal of turning to foreign governments for protection when they could turn to God. But there's this overwhelming sense of I wanted this to be different. I wanted to heal them. I wanted to redeem them. I wanted to forgive them. And every opportunity, they just pushed me away. They just disrespected me. They just despised me. And that comes out through the entire chapter. In verse 1, he talks about Israel, Ephraim, and Samaria, that all three names for the same thing, the northern kingdom. The northern kingdom, Israel, as opposed to the southern kingdom, Judah, called Ephraim. I don't know exactly why, but the northern kingdom is called Ephraim 14 times in the book of Hosea. And of course, that's one of the tribes, and might have been the most populous tribe at the time. I don't know, but it's the northern kingdom. And then Samaria is the capital city of the northern kingdom. Samaria later on will be a place named not a city, but for a region in the New Testament. But here in the Old Testament, Samaria is a city and the capital of the northern kingdom. There are these metaphors that kind of run together and mean multiple things. There are the kitchen metaphors, the oven, the cake not turned, hot as an oven, or an oven whose coals haven't been stirred. And there are so many facets to that image. There's the fact that the flame is latent and it'll flame up. It smoldered all night, but it flamed up at the dawn, he writes. So there's that. And then the cake not turned. On the bottom, it's burnt. On the top, it's not even cooked. So it's fit for nothing. And he compares them also to a silly dove. We might say a winged, or a beamed duck. A duck hit on the head. They flit from here to there like a silly dove. You know, like a pigeon. Flying from here to there without thinking about anything. Well, I tell you what. When they're flying between Assyria and Egypt, I'm going to throw my net in the air and bring them right down. They're going to receive the consequences of their actions. Um, and it's already happening, and they don't know it. you know, Strangers are devouring their strength already. They don't know it. They already have gray hairs on their head. They don't know it. Some of the images are pretty vivid. Wailing on their bed for new wine and grain for the sake of grain and new wine. That has multiple meanings. Um, and so many of the lines. I mean, the emotion is so raw. Not as raw as it's going to be in chapter 11, but it's there. They turn, but not upward. Um, it's hard. I mean, God is bearing His soul. He's making His heart open to us and showing us how much He cares and how much it hurts when we don't recognize how much He cares and when we push Him away for others. In chapter 8, we're going to spend a couple of chapters. The hurt is less regret and more anger. And we'll pick up there in chapter 8 next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes.